Hey friends, vinyl community, Wes here, back with another episode of Vinyl Survivor, and I've really been ripping through a lot of stuff lately, and I've actually had to edit this down a bit, and I took out some of the less interesting stuff, I think, so still got a pretty decent stack to go through. Like I said, I've just been tearing through some stuff lately, so it's been good, and let's go ahead and get into this. First thing we have that's going in the collection, I'm not going to show anything that didn't make it. There was a very few that didn't make it. Most of it was just out of quality issues, you know. So the first thing that did make it here is 10 Years After, A Space in Time. Really cool album. This is the one that has probably their biggest hit, I Love to Change the World. And I do like 10 Years After. Really good blues rock sort of stuff. Nice stuff. That one's going in the collection. The second one is Def Jam Recordings Volume 1. Very cool sort of early hits of Def Jam music. It has some sort of alternate versions. Like there's a 7-minute version of LL Cool J's Rock the Bells on here. And pretty cool stuff. This is a promo copy, so glad to have that in the collection. Very cool. We got Cat Stevens, Back to Earth. Pretty good stuff on here. Last Love Song, I think, was the one I liked the most on here. I think Bad Breaks was supposedly a minor hit, but I like a few of the songs, and I really do like the album art. You can't really see it, but it has like a textured sort of cover to it, and it's really pretty. It has a gold embossing on the back with the title. So I really like this, so I'm gonna add this to the collection. And it's a promo copy as well. Next thing we have here is Carole King's Rhymes and Reasons. Another good one. I think Binti Kanan is the hit. But yeah, just some beautiful Carole King singing, you know, when you're in the mood for that kind of music. This is something you might pull out and listen to. Sort of maybe Sunday morning kind of music. Next up is Suzanne Vega's Solitude Standing. I actually had never heard this album before. You know, I knew the sort of DNA remix of Tom's Diner, but beyond that, I didn't really know what her music was about, and it's really cool. I like it a lot. I guess I'd heard Luca also, but that's not even a good example of what this music is really. It's a lot more singer-songwritery sort of stuff, more serious, more introspective than Luca. But it's good stuff, and I'm glad to add this to the collection. Next thing we have here, going in the collection, is George Harrison's Cloud 9. Not particularly some of his better work, even though there's Elton John's on here, and Eric Clapton's on here, and you know, there's tons of great people on here, but it's only so-so, I think, overall. And the one hit on here was the only song on here he didn't write, which Got My Mind Set on You. But When We Was Fab is a cool song, and it's decent. It goes in my sort of Beatles solo work collection. So next up is a project that Ice-T attempted to do in the early 90s, I guess, late 80s, early 90s, late 80s. This is called Rhyme Syndicate. Sort of it was really popular back in the late 80s, early 90s to have sort of I guess you could call it a posse record, where you have a compilation of all your boys on a record. And so it's got Ice-T on here, and Spin Masters, and Everlast has a song on here, which is probably one of the better songs on here. And then there's TDF Crew, Nat the Cat, Toddy T. A bunch of people you probably never heard of, probably only ever been on just this album. But it's a cool piece of history, and just something to have. This next one, Santana's Abraxis. Not too much needs to be said about this. I mean, it's Oyo Como Va and Black Magic Woman, and just some great stuff on here. It's a classic. It's going in the collection, obviously. This next thing is something that actually surprised me. I was really expecting to just hate this, and I didn't. It's the Knack. It's their last album, Round Trip. The band broke up 3 weeks after this album was released, and I guess technically this album didn't get very good reviews, but I really enjoyed it. It had some really fun songs, and very much pop, sort of punk pop, is what I would call it. It's just that fast-paced sort of pop, loud pop music, and I enjoyed it. I don't have a lot of this type of stuff in my collection. It's not the first thing I go to when I think of the '80s, but it's fun to have, and I enjoyed having this. And I'll be listening to that some more. Next up, we got a Pete Fountain record. This is Make Your Own Kind of Music, and this has a really incredible sample at the very beginning of the first song. It's called Early in the Morning. Some people have sampled other versions of this song, but this particular one, I think I definitely could hear like Jay-Z or somebody sampling it. Maybe I'll drop in a little bit of it into the video here so you can hear it, but it's a pretty interesting sample. So that's Pete Fountain's Make Your Own Kind of Music. Next up, we got a reggae album here. This is Third World, Hold On to Love. Pretty cool, very very approachable, poppy kind of reggae. Nothing really hardcore or anything. Just really fun, fun party kind of reggae music. It's good stuff. It's '87. And it's produced by Gamble and Huff, so it does have a little bit of an R&B feel to it at times, but it's good '80s sort of reggae. Next thing, we have a compilation. These were pretty popular in the mid '90s when G-Funk was the big thing in hip hop. It was really popular for people to release compilations of funk music where the samples came from. So this has, it has probably the most popular sample, or the most well-known sample on here is I Want to Do Something Freaky to You by Leon Haywood, is the Nothing But a G-Thing sample. It's got Tear the Roof Off, Parliament, a lot of stuff on here, so it's pretty cool to have this. Really fun if you just want to hear some funk and a little bit of a compilation. Next piece is a piece of history. I don't really listen to this a lot, but it's something that was a big thing. I remember when this all went down. Is Milli Vanilli's "Girl, You Know It's True." Is when they got caught lip syncing, and turned out that they didn't really actually do any of the music on this album. It was a big controversy and a big sort of. Okay, I had to plug the camera in. Anyway, getting back to this, this was sort of a very pivotal moment in music history. Is when, in the late '80s, when MTV had been around and became a really strong force in music, and it became all about image and not about the music anymore. And that's something we're still fighting to this day. Is it's a lot of times it's more about the image than the actual music, and it's not MTV anymore promoting that, but it's more of these sometimes these reality TV shows that are promoting these different kind of groups and stuff that are they're an image. They're not really musicians, and people who may be talented aren't getting recognized because they don't have what's considered a sexy image or anything like that. So, but it's a very very interesting moment in music and a piece of history, and I'd like to have it in my collection. So that's going in the collection. This next piece is this was originally released in '63, I believe, but this reissue is from '73. This is Jesse Colin Young, Soul of a City Boy. This is another thing that really surprised me. I didn't think I was gonna like it, but it's very, very good. Sort of folk, a little bit folky music. It's folk in the way that Gordon Lightfoot is folk. You know, it's not sort of that hillbilly kind of music that you might think folk is, but it's more of just you know, acoustic guitar songs about life, and it's really good. I was really impressed with this. I'd love to find an original of this. Unfortunately, they're extremely rare. This reissue that they did in the 70s, they deleted one of the songs, which is disappointing, but for now I have to have this. I don't know if I showed the back or not, but that's definitely going in the collection. Very interesting. I definitely recommend picking this up if you see it. Next up is a piece of jazz. I don't have very much jazz in my collection. We got Dave Brubeck and Jay and Kai at Newport. This is sort of a split LP, I guess you could call it. Dave Brubeck does one side and Jay and Kai do the other side. And that's Jay Johnson and Kai Winding is who Jay and Kai are. And this is some cool jazz, you know, sort of it's not a modern jazz or anything. It's very traditional sounding jazz music, but I enjoy listening to it, and this is a nice piece, so that's going in my collection. This next one is something I just recently talked about. This is something I recently purchased, but it's My Life in the Bush of Ghosts by Brian Eno and David Byrne. This is an experimental album they did together in '82, I believe. It was 81. Sort of experimental in the way that they took and they mixed sort of world music, sort of African sounding world music with a lot of different samples and clips and sounds, and it's very, very interesting. There's just like samples of news broadcasts sort of clipped in and used, and then there's like there's some Arabic chanting, and there's actually pieces of an exorcism sort of clipped in here, but it's just a very interesting sound experiment, and it's really good. I've really been enjoying listening to this. I played it a bunch, and just a really cool sort of experimental album. You know, like I said, early 80s, before it had all the digital sampling machines and everything. So this is sort of all done manually, just cutting and splicing things together, and it's very cool, and I like it, and I'm glad to have this in the collection. And that was one that Rob had bought when we went shopping in Milwaukee. And the last piece here is Culture Club album, From Luxury to Heartache. I like this one. Definitely like it a lot better than Waking Up with the House on Fire, which the one I didn't like so well. This one's back to more just some fun, dancey kind of songs, and I like it. So that is my sort of amended update for I guess this is number 5 now. I hope everyone is doing well, and thanks for watching, and we'll see you again real soon. Cheers.